ICD 11 for mortality and morbidity statistics. February version, February this year. Code 6A05, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADHD is characterized by a persistent pattern which is at least 6 months of inattention, check, and or hyperactivity, impulsivity, check, as a direct negative impact on academic, occupational, or social functioning, check. There is evidence of significant inattention and or hyperactivity or impulsivity symptoms prior to age 12. Only one example I can think of. Before my entrance exam to get my scholarship to my private school when I was 10, one of my mum's then friends sat me down to do a practice essay, in a room with nothing else but the essay to do, and I just couldn't even start it. It might be because it was too free form. It was almost a blank canvas. The prompt wasn't enough, because at least it's true for me that you actually, I don't know, creativity isn't, it can't just be from the formless void. It's got to be an adaptation of something, or an improvement of something, or a refinement of something, or a rebellion against something. But it's not an isolated, purely abstract, purely subjective thing. I can't just dream up a sort of pure vision and paint it. My creativity, to the extent that I have any, is not like that. So I don't know. So I guess that's the only not evidence, but example I can think of significant inattention around that age. Though some individuals may first come to clinical attention later. Well, definitely. I'm 40. The degree of inattention and hyperactivity or impulsivity is outside the limits of normal variation expected for age and level of intellectual functioning. Well, I assume this based on the results, but how do people compare these things? What's my, the ever-present lack of objectivity. Inattention refers to significant difficulty in sustaining attention to tasks that do not provide a high level of stimulation or frequent rewards. Fucking game addiction. Exactly. Difficulty with distractibility. Yeah, in work. It's the constant reining in that's the thing. Yes, you can start. You can go, okay, no, center, be present, just do the task. But then 2 minutes later, you've got to do that again. You can't keep up. Every 3 or 4 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, but just click this link. But just this video game. Something more. Just keeps trying to pull your attention back from the thing that you merely rationally know you're supposed to be doing. It can't really. Short-term, immediate consequences are much more salient, much more consistently present in awareness. They're always there, beating on the door, trying to hold a longer future consequence in mind. Not just the fact of it, but the emotional power of that, motivational power of that consequence is just impulsivity, distractibility, they win by a kind of attrition, short time scale. They'll ground you down. It's, you can resist temptation, but you can't resist repeated temptation. And problems with organisation. Organisation. I mean, I think that's a problem with, yes, time, yes, attention, but also operationalization. Because to organize things, you've got to box off what's thing A and where its boundary is with thing B, and I don't do boundaries well. I can see that they're useful, but my instinct knows that they're sort of artificial and don't really exist much in real life. Like, if you can't neatly separate thing that needs doing A from thing that needs sorting B, and then you can't break down what are the steps involved in sorting and doing into things that you can actually go, oh, here is step A that I can do, and then remember and have planned and know that it's going to lead to step B that you can do. You've got to define all those things, which means you've got to take reality, which is like Van Gogh's Starry Night or some sort of animated wallpaper or something. It's not that I see it in an animated way, it's just that I have to deliberately, with some sort of effort of will, go, there is a line I can draw there, there's a line I can draw there, and then I've got to remember that I held those lines, and so I've got to keep them in place. These, like, this logical overlay. Discreteness, boundaries. I can see why logical people do well, because they can go A then B then C then D. They can say this is A, that's B, this is C, that's D. To abstract things like tasks as well. So it must come from from physical things. I can say, this is mug A, that's pen B, they're separate here, but when you get into like tasks that aren't, physical or sensory, they're a bunch of just words, like, difficult. Anyway, hyperactivity refers to excessive motor activity. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that is it's an occasional thing, almost like a little bit manic state or a high burst, or it comes out as a kind of nervous energy, or like I'm a excessive leg shaker kind of person, something like that. Difficulties with remaining still, well, sure, a little bit, but no, I don't really think that applies, or I have no reason to think it does. This is most evident in structured situations that require behavioural self-control. I'll just presume that there's a bit of that there, but that it's not noticeable. Impulsivity is a tendency to act in response to immediate stimuli, as mentioned, without deliberation or consideration of the risks and consequences. It's just that it's not without, it's just that they don't carry weight. They're just background noise. They're not tied to motivation, or this thing that's called willpower that people supposedly have. They don't have the emotional salience. And to be honest, there are times when it can be without deliberation or consideration of the risks and consequences, but those times are rare and liberating and almost enjoyable, when you can just be completely futureless, instinctual animal. They're a release, but they're few and far between as you get older, and you can't go out like burning yourself up on the dance floor after a few drinks without a care in the world, without a restriction in the world, an inhibition in the world. It's not all bad. But yeah, okay, so what have I just said? Oh, I like being impulsive, and I'm sad that I don't get a chance to be so much. It's not. Am I responsible for my impulsivity? Oh, I don't know. It's hard to imagine happiness without it. I don't know. Anyway, that's the point. But yes, okay. I don't think it's defined like that. It's the deliberation. I think that is not something I entirely agree with. Okay, so impulsivity is a tendency to act in response to immediate stimuli without deliberation or consideration of the risks and consequences. It's not without. It's forgetting, disregarding, trivializing, dismissing. Or it feels more like the risks and consequences just sort of fade out. Their voice might say something, but it gets weaker. Anyway. The relative balance and the specific manifestations of inattentive and hyperactive impulsive characteristics varies across individuals and may change over the course of development. Okay. In order for a diagnosis to be made, manifestations of inattention and or hyperactivity impulsivity must be evident across multiple situations or settings, e.g. home, school, work definitely, friends surely, or relatives. Maybe it doesn't stand out in the home/family environment because it's so much more the norm there, but anyway. These manifestations are likely to vary according to the structure and demands of the setting. Yes, okay, so it's contextual. I think I'd read that something like this, suspected to be like between 1.25 and 1.5 million people with ADHD in the UK, even though they're like a quarter, less than a quarter of those have been diagnosed so far. And if that's the case, that's too large a proportion for it to be. Well, it seems like it's too large a proportion for it to just be sort of various. What I'm trying to get at is it seems like a huge chunk for it all to be abnormality or disorder without also being adaptive. I think that's the good side of the neurodiversity like representation movement thing that's going on, is it's trying to indicate that a lot of this neurodiversity exists because, yeah, okay, it's maladaptive, it causes problems, but even if it's just to a lesser degree, there either is or perhaps historically has been a more or less adaptive side to it. Clearly, I'm some kind of creative thinker, and clearly, there is at least some potential value in that. All of that very loosely defined and in lots of air quotes, but it is contextual. Perhaps 200 years ago, people like me would have, I don't know, either had to have gone into a monastery or become a bandit, if assuming that I wasn't like born a prince. If I was just, statistically some regular born peasants, or maybe I'd have been able to become a hermit living in the woods, but there is no way I could keep up with like the demands of peasant farming life in a routinized way. I wonder how many bandits were unwilling, felt forced into that lifestyle because here at least they could somehow survive according to how their minds work, as opposed to sort of being this tortured, grey, pressured, self loathing, feeble failure of a farmer or business person. I can see how you'd, even though you are against banditry, you might feel forced into that. I wonder how many like witches burnt at the stake were just autistic people. Anyway, point is that the context, I think, forces more and more people out to the side. It becomes tighter. Like in the information age, we are careers in society are selecting, or for a number of things, but at least one of them is more and more for conscientious kinds of intelligence and high intelligence generally. You've got to be structured and self-managing and self-driven to some extent. You can't. You've got to be able to be productive, and then there's all the social component to it. Perhaps it's just increasingly less and less people are equipped for that, are naturally able to keep up with that. And it seems to me that might only get worse. Symptoms are not better accounted for by another mental, behavioural or neurodevelopmental disorder and are not due to the effect of a substance or medication. No. Substances come second, definitely. So definitely more. Does it say more about inattention? Okay, yeah. Okay, essential features: persistent pattern of inattention and/or hyperactivity and impulsivity outside the limits of normal variation expected for age and level of intellectual development. Well, I don't know what that is, so let the doctors say. Symptoms may vary according to chronological age and disorder severity. Okay, inattention. Here we go. Several symptoms of inattention that are persistent, sufficiently severe that they have a direct negative impact on. Yeah, okay, I've read all this. Academic, occupational, social. I think all of those, yeah. Especially occupational. Symptoms are typically from the following clusters: difficulty sustaining attention to tasks that do not provide a high level of stimulation or reward, or that require sustained mental effort. Yeah, all of the above. Lacking attention to detail, making careless mistakes in school or work assignments, not completing tasks. All of the above. All of them. Not completion more than attention to detail. Attention to detail is heavily mood dependent. I think it's badly controlled. Well, that's why it's an attention regulation thing, isn't it? It's a not insufficient attention, insufficient control of the attention. You don't control what your attention does. It's like a wild horse. Something more like that. Easily distracted by extraneous stimuli or thoughts not related to the task at hand. Incredibly, yes. Often does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. Yeah, but passively I often am listening. It's just neither you nor me are aware of. I don't look like I'm taking any of it in, and who knows how much I will have taken in. I don't know. We just kind of find out. But that daydreamy sort of passive pre-conscious listening did work well in high school, at least secondary school. But yeah, sure enough. Frequently appears to be daydreaming or to have mind elsewhere. Yes, often that elsewhere is not like I couldn't tell you where it was. It's like just a complete zone out. Loses things. Check. Is forgetful in daily activities. Or like of daily activities within them. Depends how recently and well like habituated they are. But yeah, broadly yes overall. Has difficulty remembering to complete upcoming daily tasks or activities. Yes, but I've got a bigger difficulty with actually making myself do them. Difficulty planning, managing and organising schoolwork. I didn't even know that you had to plan, manage or organise schoolwork. God, it's just terrifying to think about. I would. This is usually why I like working, and why many times I thought when I was young enough to still be able to do that I'd join the military. Is so people can do all that for me. It's why I did well in school, because I had to turn up each day and the lessons were broken up for me and whatever. As soon as I am supposed to be able to do that, when I was a team leader, I tried to take it as seriously as I possibly could, and I had like an hour commute in, and I'd spend most of that just like with a diary trying to sort of plan my day, giving it a go, that whole time management thing. But it was absolutely exhausting. Not much left after that to do much. And then if there's any admin during the day, oh god. Managing, organising, planning tasks and other, I can't imagine applying planning, managing and organising to most of life. Note, inattention may not be evident when the individuals engage in activities that provide intense stimulation and frequent rewards. Well, sometimes even there, but it is sporadic and bursty. Yeah, it's that hyper focus thing. Sometimes your attention goes all in and empties. It's like tank fast. Sometimes it's just not there. It does what it likes. Hyperactivity, impulsivity. Let's go straight to the following clusters for symptoms. Excessive motor activity. Leave seat when expect to sit still. I don't usually do that, but when I do, it's usually better for me. Often runs about. I think maybe I might have used to do a little bit more in the past. I don't really know. There's difficulty sitting still without fidgeting. If that's in younger children, I shift a lot, I'd say. Feelings of physical restlessness, sometimes terribly, but not often. Sense of discomfort with being quiet or sitting still. Not so much being quiet, sitting still, yes. Difficulty engaging in activities quietly, talks too much. Yeah, I mean, only if there's other people to talk to. Or type to. Blurts out answers in school, yes. That was fun. Comments at work, definitely. Difficulty waiting turn in conversation. Yeah, because if I don't say it now in 5 seconds, I won't know what it was at all. Difficulty waiting turn in games, can't even remember. Or activities, again, I don't think I've got a problem with those. Interrupts or intrudes on others' conversations or games. I am certain that I do that. I also don't have a problem with it. I kind of like that. I like my impulsivity. Wow. A tendency to act in response to immediate stimuli without deliberation or considering risks or consequences, e.g. engaging in behaviours with potential for physical injury, impulsive decisions, reckless driving. I wouldn't even try driving at this point. Okay. Only thing, symptoms are not better accounted for by another mental disorder. Wow, how can I be sure of that? Symptoms are not due to the effects of a substance. No, they're not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have that.